The hyena already had the cub in her mouth when the mother came back. A spotted cub dangling from a hyena's jaws, its tiny legs kicking the air, is the kind of thing you never forget once you've seen it. And what happened next, in those open dry flats of the Serengeti, defied every rule that nature had spent millions of years writing. But we'll get there. Zuri was 3 years old and she was built for this landscape. Long legs, a golden coat covered in bold black spots, ears so large and sharp they could pull sound out of complete silence. She wasn't the biggest animal in the Serengeti. Not even close. A full-grown serval cat weighs around 9 pounds. 9. The size of a house cat. But Zuri moved through this territory like she owned it, because in every way that mattered she did. She'd claimed this stretch of dry grassland 14 months ago. Not through size. Not through brute force. Through knowing it better than anything else that lived there. Every ant mound, every reed cluster, every shadow that shifted when the wind changed. She knew where the frogs hid after rain and where the rodents ran when the grass thinned out. She had made this place hers through pure attention. 6 weeks ago everything changed. She gave birth to 3 cubs in a den she had spent days preparing, a hollowed-out space beneath a cracked and collapsed termite mound at the edge of the grass flats. From the outside it looked like nothing. A small dark gap in dry earth. From 10 feet away you wouldn't even notice it. That was the point. Zuri had chosen it for exactly that reason. 3 cubs. 2 males and 1 female. All born within the same hour, all small enough to sit in your open palm. Their eyes hadn't even opened yet when Zuri began organizing her entire life around keeping them alive. She hunted in short windows, never straying more than a minute's sprint from the den. She came back constantly to check on them, nurse them, clean them. She barely slept. That morning started the same as every other morning for 6 weeks. She left the cubs curled together in the den's deepest corner, warm, fed, and quiet. She had a small window, maybe 20 minutes, to catch something near the reed edge 60 meters away. She had done this exact run dozens of times. In and out. Fast and clean. She caught a small lizard near the water's edge. She turned to head back. And she heard it. 3 cubs screaming at the exact same time. Zuri covered 60 meters in under 12 seconds. What she saw when she got there stopped her mid-stride for exactly 1 second, the only second she would waste. The hyena was already halfway out of the den, and she had Zuri's smallest cub locked in her jaw. The hyena's name was Duma, though she didn't know that. Researchers tracking the area had tagged her 18 months earlier when she was still running with her natal clan near the northern corridor. She was young, just over 3 years old, recently separated from her group, and currently doing what young solitary hyenas do when hunger overrides caution. She was making bad decisions. Duma weighed 60 pounds. She had jaws strong enough to crush bone. She had survived on her own for 4 months by targeting things that couldn't fight back effectively. Mongoose burrows. Warthog nests. Anything small, confined, and unguarded. When she had crossed the dry flat that morning and caught the scent of the den, her brain ran a fast and simple calculation. Small. Hidden. No adult nearby. Easy. She had begun digging at the den entrance with her front paws, slow and methodical. The cubs screamed and pressed themselves into the farthest corner. Their screaming didn't bother her. Screaming prey is prey that hasn't escaped yet. She widened the gap in the earth, pushed her head through and grabbed the smallest cub by its scruff. She was backing out of the den, cub in her mouth, when Zuri arrived. 1 second. That's all Zuri gave herself to process what she was seeing. Then she moved. She didn't hiss from a distance. She didn't try to bluff from 10 feet away. She crossed the remaining ground between them in a flat sprint and launched herself directly onto Duma's back before the hyena even completed her turn. Duma outweighed Zuri by more than 6 to 1. On paper this was not a fight. This was a very fast ending. But Zuri didn't aim for Duma's body. She aimed for the one place a hyena absolutely cannot ignore. She drove her claws into the thin skin behind Duma's ear, raking hard and fast, her back legs churning for grip on the hyena's thick neck. Duma yelped. A real yelp, sharp and high, not the confident descending laugh she'd used moments before. The cub dropped from her jaw into the dirt. Zuri released, hit the ground, repositioned in under 2 seconds, and placed herself directly between the cub and the hyena. Duma shook her head. There was blood behind her ear, not deep but real. Her eyes refocused on Zuri and something shifted in them. The easy calculation from earlier was gone. What replaced it was sharper. More dangerous. She was no longer looking at a minor inconvenience. She was deciding whether to commit. Zuri's body told its own story. Every hair on her spine was standing straight up. Her tail moved in one rigid slow arc. She was making herself as large as her 9 pounds could possibly appear, and she was not backing up a single inch. Duma charged. And Zuri moved left. Zuri didn't retreat. She redirected. That distinction matters more than it sounds. A retreat is panic. A redirect is a plan. Zuri cut left at a sharp angle, drawing Duma away from the den entrance, pulling her pursuit into the tall reed grass 20 meters to the east. It was a calculated move, the kind that comes from knowing your territory better than your enemy does. In the reeds, Zuri's smaller body became an advantage. She slipped between the thick dry stems like water moving through cracks. Duma crashed through them, her heavier frame working against her, snapping stalks, losing momentum with every step. For almost 30 seconds the gap between them held steady. Zuri kept just enough distance to stay alive and just close enough to keep Duma's attention locked on her and away from the den. Then the reeds ended. Open ground stretched out ahead, flat and wide and completely exposed under the mid-morning sun. Zuri hit that open space and felt the shift immediately. No more cover. No more narrow gaps to exploit. Just dry earth and short grass and 60 pounds of Hyena accelerating behind her. Duma's stride opened up the moment she cleared the reeds. On open ground she was faster. Zuri knew it. She could feel the distance between them shrinking with every second. 10 feet. 8. 6. She couldn't outrun this. Zuri planted her feet and turned around. Not because she had a plan. Not because she saw an opening. She turned because running in a straight line across open ground was a guaranteed ending, and stopping, facing forward, refusing to accept what was coming, was the only other option she had. So she took it. Duma covered the last stretch in one long bound and hit Zuri with her full weight. The impact sent Zuri rolling sideways through the grass, her body tumbling twice before she stopped. Duma's jaws snapped at the air inches behind her spine, missing by a margin that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with Zuri twisting mid-air with the kind of flexibility that only a cat's body allows. She got both hind legs up during the roll and drove them hard into Duma's nose on the way past. A double kick, fast and sharp, the kind that lands differently than a claw swipe. Duma recoiled, shaking her head hard. Zuri was already back on her feet. But something was wrong. Her front right leg had absorbed the collision badly when she hit the ground. She could stand. She could move. But the speed that had kept her alive twice in the last 2 minutes was gone. Her stride was uneven. She was favoring the leg with every step. Duma circled her slowly now, her eyes tracking the limp with predator focus. The easy calculation had returned. Injured. Small. Alone. She lunged. From 200 meters away, across the open flat near the acacia tree line, a male serval had been resting in the thin shade when the alarm call started. His name, as far as the researchers tracking this area were concerned, was K7. 11 pounds, slightly larger than Zuri, with the same oversized ears and the same long legs built more for jumping than running. He and Zuri shared overlapping territory, which is unusual for servals. They are typically solitary animals. They avoid each other more than they seek each other out. He had fathered her litter 6 weeks ago and had kept a loose, distant presence in the area since then. Not protective exactly. Just nearby. But when those alarm calls reached him, something changed. He was moving before he had any clear information about what was happening. Just the sound of her voice, urgent and sustained and carrying a frequency he had never heard from her before, and his legs were already running. He covered 200 meters in a flat sprint that most people would not believe possible from an animal his size. He came in low and fast from the left, completely outside Duma's field of vision, and hit her mid-lunge at full speed. 11 pounds landing at a full sprint feels like significantly more than 11 pounds. Duma stumbled sideways, losing the clean angle she had on Zuri. And before she could reset, both servals were on her simultaneously. Zuri from the front. K7 from the left side. No coordination, no signal between them, just two animals arriving at the same target from different directions at the same moment. They went for her face. Ears, nose, the thin skin around her eyes, the sensitive area behind her jaw. Fast repeated strikes, claws open, hitting and resetting and hitting again before Duma could track either of them. Every time she turned toward K7, Zuri hit her from the front. Every time she snapped at Zuri, K7 raked the side of her face. She couldn't focus. She couldn't commit to either threat without the other one landing. Duma had broken bones before. She had taken real injuries and kept going. But she had never experienced this, two small relentless attackers dismantling her concentration completely, making her feel surrounded by something much larger than what was actually there. She broke. Duma ran without looking back. No circling. No regrouping. No final display of confidence. She disappeared into the reed grass at full speed and the wetland swallowed her completely. The sound of her crashing through the stems faded, then stopped, and then there was nothing but wind moving across dry grass and the distant call of a bird somewhere near the water. Zuri and K7 stood side by side, both breathing hard, both watching the direction she had gone. Neither moved for a long moment. Then Zuri turned and limped back toward the den. K7 followed. The two cubs still inside erupted the moment they caught their mother's scent at the entrance. The third cub, the one Duma had dropped in the dirt during the first attack, was already back inside. Shaken but untouched. Zuri pressed her face into all three of them and stayed there, her whole body trembling with something that had nothing to do with the cold. They were all there. Every single one. Her front leg healed within 10 days. Researchers monitoring the area noted it as a minor soft tissue strain, nothing structural. She hunted through the discomfort from day one, because 3 cubs waiting in a den is a more powerful motivator than any amount of pain. K7 stayed close for nearly 4 weeks after the attack. Longer than any documented serval behavior in the area suggested was typical. Whether that was instinct or something that doesn't have a clean scientific name, the researchers couldn't say. What they could say was that during those 4 weeks nothing came near that den. All 3 cubs survived to independence. In Serengeti grassland conditions, that is not a common outcome. Researchers noted the event in their records. A 9-pound serval initiating direct physical contact with a 60-pound hyena to protect her cubs falls within documented behavioral range, but only at the very edge of it. Most servals in that situation make a different choice. The evolutionary math says protect yourself, try again next season. Zuri never ran that calculation. She heard her cubs screaming and she ran toward it. No guarantees. No backup. No certainty that any of it would work. Just a direction and a reason and everything she had. 9 pounds carrying something that weight was never going to measure anyway.